Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting us to the BCEP Online Festival, or as it's now called, Barnet and Culture for Youth, which I'm just getting the hang of. So yeah, we're delighted to be here, and we're just coming along this afternoon just to tell you a bit about what we get up to, what we've got up to, what we plan on getting up to. And I'll start by running through how we can support the curriculum. And then I'll pass over to Rhiannon, who will talk about the arts and cultural offer for children and young people and how we work with other organisations in Barnet. So hopefully that will work. And then at the end of my bit, there'll be some time for questions. And then at the end of Rhiannon's the same. So if anyone's got anything they'd like to ask us, please feel free. Okay, I'm going to hopefully share my screen now. Maybe somebody could let me know if that's okay. Lovely. Okay. Might have to move all your heads out of the way because they're all sort of like in the way of my presentation now. Okay. So for those of you who are unaware, the RAF Museum is in Colindale, just on Graham Parkway. We've been there since I think it's 1972. I think it is that we were founded, and we had a lovely amount of money spent on us for the centenary in 2018. So we're looking all fancy and nice. So we're free to enter. Currently closed because of government lockdown, but usually open every day of the week and free to enter. The only change at the minute is you just need to book your ticket online so we know to expect you and when your slot is, so there won't be any overcrowding. Okay, so everything, I'm talking about the schools programme before I pass over to Rhiannon. Rhiannon is Heritage Outreach Officer and I'm Head of Access and Learning at the museum. So everything we develop is from early years through to secondary. Like most museums, the majority of our visitors from these groups are primary and generally Key Stage 2. We have a range of workshops, which I'll talk a bit about in a minute, and all of them are linked to the curriculum. There's 8 in the Access and Learning team, and all the facilitators are really experienced in delivery, and each of them has a subject specialism. So we have STEM, history, art and design, early years, and SEN specialisms within the team. So whenever we're developing anything new, they're the people they'll start with, and then we have learning advisory groups, friendly local teachers. So everything we do is in consultation and starting from people's knowledge base and then asking teachers what they actually want. So I'm looking at financial year 2019-20, because if I look at school year 2019-20, it makes me want to cry, because obviously the school year sort of ended mid-March and that was that, and the numbers were looking really good. And then, so if I look at financial year, basically that runs to the end of March. So we're only a couple of weeks off the end of the financial year when COVID struck. So in that financial year, we welcomed 672 schools, including 36 special needs schools, and that brought the total number of learners to 34,000. So we have another museum site at Cosford. There's the RAF Museum in Cosford, and they deal with similar numbers, and they have workshops, their own workshops up there as well. So there's 2 sites for the RAF Museum. So the team in total delivered 760 workshops, and the workshops are generally up to an hour in length. So what then happened, as with other people, is the museum closed. Ignore me a minute, I'm just moving this box of you people away from my words. There we go. It's quite fun to move 4 people like that. So the museum closed on the 18th of March. We were the first national museum to reopen on the 6th of July. And we were open again until last week. So we'd been open, I think, August, September, October, yeah, 4 months. And when we closed again last week, and we'll reopen if government advice doesn't change on the 5th of December. So we're closed for the month. So COVID happened. Obviously, with all organisations, we had to completely rethink our learning programme. The most basic thing was we couldn't have any object handling in, no shared equipment. We needed to think about smaller groups. We needed to think about social distancing. And probably as with all of you, we started off, all the government advice changed all the time. So we thought we were dealing with very small bubbles, and the bubbles got bigger. So there was it was a time of a lot of planning and replanning, and as things changed. But we always knew that whatever happened, we couldn't have object handling in, which is obviously a key part of museum learning. You know, we have things, we've got a fantastic handling collection, which is used in almost all our sessions, but we couldn't do that. So it's quite a different experience, and everything you're taught about museum learning, it felt a bit like unlearning it and thinking, well, how can we keep the engagement without any of the tactile stuff, any of the multi-sensory stuff? And it was a really different way of thinking. So probably we were depressed for a bit, but we didn't hang around in that state. We decided to see it as an opportunity, and to be honest, we'd never had the time to develop an online program. Because we had a successful schools program, and because schools booked, and because actually sometimes we couldn't cope, we were at capacity, there was never actually the time or really the need, in a sense, because even though we thought there might be there was not time in our day to develop a program that we didn't know if there was a need for, when we knew that schools loved coming for visits. But we knew we needed something to be able to offer from the autumn term. So over the summer, we started filming for our new online Stream to Your School workshops, which are now running, and I'll tell you a bit more about in a minute. So then we dealt with changing all the web content, communications out to our schools to let them know we're still here. You know, at that point we were closed, but we were going to have an offer for the autumn term. Obviously, all new risk assessments, involving all the safeguarding issues around online stuff, but actually it's not been a big issue for us. We can't see the classes, so there isn't that. They see the team, we don't see them. We run for our Q&A function, so that's okay. But we also had to do all on-site risk assessments, because we hoped that some schools would be brave enough to visit in the autumn term. And up until we closed last week, we have been having some schools coming in, and it was delightful to see them back on site. New procedures for managing visits. Who knew you'd need to know so much about, like, I don't know, cleaning and sanitizing, and, you know, obviously we then had to repurpose all our spaces to have loads of lunch space, just because we needed to keep all the classes separate, no walking up and down the same set of stairs, so entries and exits. Everything was thought about. We reduced the number of people and the number of schools on site, so we're down to 3 classes a day we take. But if with 90 children, we can, it's pretty foolproof in terms of keeping them separate, them having a really safe, managed visit. Yeah, and so by September, the revised programme was ready and at the museum. So we really reduced our programme down, which going forward, I think we might stick with it being a bit of a reduced programme. It got quite big. You know how you have a good idea and then you have another good idea, you just build on it, and suddenly you think that's a lot of workshops. So actually, I think we might keep ourselves a bit more streamlined. Not as streamlined as this, but a bit more streamlined. So we have 3 workshops that can take place at the museum. We have Fantastic Flight, which we always had, and we realised that, moving the picture again, for our Key Stage 1. So this takes students in small groups now. We used to do it for groups of 30, just normal class sizes, but now we halve the group and we have 2 members of staff, and because we have one-way routes around the whole museum because of COVID, so it's all nicely structured. So this looks at flight from the First World War, and the RAF was founded in 1918, just at the end of the First World War, and it looks at the RE8, then we look at the NAT, and we just go right through to the F-35, which is the most modern aircraft. And it's really nice, it moves the students between the planes, so that's quite exciting, links with science and history. The other one which we developed new, so this was written over the summer, was a Second World War aircraft tour. We know that Second World War gets taught a lot in the autumn term, and we knew that the session we did have, which was Wartime Classroom, which is one of our best because we just couldn't do it. So much touching of paper, so much sitting close to other people in like a genuine, like we've set up a wartime classroom, like so desks, and it just couldn't work. Everything about it was wrong, even though everything about it is so popular normally. So we've done this, which is a tour of the aircraft, again in small groups, where nobody crosses over each other. So it's quite nice, this one. Looks at people's stories as well as aircraft stories, top secret technology, rationing and lucky escapes. So that's that one. And the third one, Air Raid, I think we've probably run this session, I don't know, at least 15 years I should think, but it's really, really popular. and a member of the team is an air raid warden, and they encourage you to stay safe during blackouts, gas attacks and air raids. And we can still run that, minus the bit where they go to the air raid shelter, because we can't squash 30 children into an air raid shelter at the minute. So it doesn't have that bit. We still have the impression of it where the lights go out, and it still has the same atmosphere about it, but not in the confined space, which we can't do. And again, the room's all been marked out, so the students are in one bit, there's 2 meters distance between our staff and them. Staff wear face shields for delivery, see-through, so people can see lips. Okay, so these are all new. These Stream to Your School ones are all the ones that we developed over the summer, ready to roll. They run with, they're live streamed, so 2 members of staff, 1 producing, 1 delivering, and they run at set times of the week. Schools book in to attend at those set times of the week, and they have a live intro, a pre-filmed bit, and then an outro which has a more workshop feel at the end, where we actually interact with the children in their classrooms. So all our stream sessions require is 1 computer and 1 screen per classroom. We do it via Teams and Vimeo, and we offer a tech check to the schools in advance of the day, so they're not suddenly surprised. Check their sound levels, check they can just click on the link for Teams, and check that they can play Vimeo. Safeguarding, they sign a safeguarding agreement in which, you know, we guarantee that our staff are DBS checked, which we all have enhanced DBSs, and that we can't see the children, so we don't have any issues from that point of view. Offered Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays during term time, and all information on that link there. We're offering them for free in the autumn term, largely because, you know, it's a tough time for schools and we want to support where we can. And also it's a new thing, so we haven't got an audience for these sessions because we've not done them before, but we have a really lovely audience who come every year. So we wanted to encourage them that if they can't come because it's their school thing, or they're a bit nervous about it, or whatever the reasons are, that we wanted to encourage them to do one of these, as they get 1 per school free. After that it's £30 per session, and it's all booked online. And the 5 of these we have, I promise not to steal but more than that 5 minutes of your time, Rhiannon, are Teddy's Travels. Very nice. Now Teddy is a little bit daft and seems to have lost a lot of his clothing around the museum, so we go looking for Teddy's stuff, and he's actually he's lost his medal in this one, hasn't he? I forgot. In the one we do on site, he's naked and he's lost all his stuff, and we put his clothes back on a little tour around the transport. On this one, yeah, he's lost his medal, and he's due to be awarded it, but he doesn't know which form of transport he's left it in. So at the museum, as well as aircraft, we also have other forms of transport, and also we do like helicopters. And so he goes round with his little mates to try and find his medal, and then he has a little award ceremony at the end. So it fits with transport and people who help us for early years foundation stage. So fantastic flight, the same as we have on site, we can also do online with its pre-recorded bit. So it's 100 years of flight, looking at 4 particular aircraft, and then it finishes by looking at the forces of flight as well. So that fits in nicely for science and history. Air raid again, this links with history, and yeah, how to stay safe during the air raids. And then there's a nice mystery object session where the children get by their teacher, they shout out in class what they think things are for our mystery objects, put it in the Q&A, and then we sort of interact with them like that. So it was really important to us that we kept the interaction, and it was how to do that when we don't have a class. We can't read a room as normal, but teachers obviously know their classes really well, so we haven't actually found that an issue at all, and we've had some lovely feedback which I'll come on to. And Battle of Britain, it's the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Britain, and our bookings for Battle of Britain workshop were going really well until COVID. So we wanted to keep the interest in Battle of Britain while it's the anniversary year, and so this is lovely. It looks at, it's particularly focused on people who were heroes and who was brave, and really asking children to think about, it's not just pilots, you know, there are lots of people make up teams, make up the Royal Air Force, and that's what that looks at, and it's got a lovely Q&A at the end. And our Pilots of the Caribbean, which is for Upper Key Stage 2, looks at RAF personnel of African and Caribbean heritage. We already had something for Key Stage 3, but then we thought we really want to keep this as part of the programme. So we've got this for Upper Key Stage 2, and it booked really well for Black History Month. But we want it not just to book for Black History Month, but to book throughout the whole year. But it's a particularly nice session because it's done. The pre-filmed bits got some sort of poetry bits in and some time jumps as you move between time periods to try and help the children get the chronology from First World War right up to people who are serving today. So that's nice, and we hear from some Black RAF personnel who are serving. But also hear about the bravery of people who actually often paid for their own passage to come over to actually join the RAF and fight. So there's some really good stories in there. And just to conclude my bit, teacher feedback so far. This was as of 2 weeks ago. Nothing's changed, honestly. It's not like it's now down to 10%. So curriculum links and suitability for age group, pupils' enjoyment, level interactivity, facilitator and ease of use of technology, 100% rated good or excellent from teacher feedback. Reliability of technology, 88%. We addressed that with sometimes the films were buffering. So now we're hosting them on Vimeo. We haven't had that issue. So we haven't that, and occasionally when they've said this feedback, when I've looked at it, teachers said, oh, I know it was me, or I should have gone to the tech check or the sound level, so some of that reliability isn't to do with us. Some of it's to do with them, but we feel that has improved as well. So impact, we've got some lovely quotes here. What impact do you think this online session had on your students? One teacher said they came away with many aspects of our topic with a fresh eye. They were curious and asked many questions. It gave them a whole new way of looking at the issues. Another teacher said it's opened up a great line of thought that we'll investigate and develop further in class, the concept of bravery and the part we all play in a team. And then this session helped them understand what an air raid was like for local residents. It also helped place our class novel, Goodnight Mr. Tom, into historical context. Thank you. And then we always ask whether their expectations were met, and someone said the virtual session was similar to what I expected, having engaged with the museum in previous years. It was good to have the interaction where the warden asked questions which encouraged children to think about answers, and they were pleased when they were being praised for giving correct answers. And somebody we didn't pay said this, one of the best scripted, most engaging, fun and informative workshops. And then someone else said it was absolutely wonderful, informative, engaging, and extremely well put together. We cannot fault any aspect of the workshop. So we've actually been delighted, because this is lovely to hear that we've actually created something which teachers like, which they don't feel it's like a poorer, we didn't want it to be a poorer version of a visit, because it's really hard as a museum with such wow factor. Like, we have planes, they're ginormous, they're really impressive. You walk in, you're like, whoop. We don't have that online, so it's like, well, how can we keep the engagement? And so what we've done is everything really focuses on storytelling. So all the sessions, whatever they're about, they have stories in them, stories of real people, living or dead, who've been part of the force. Okay, I reached the end. If anyone has any questions for me, either now, which is absolutely fine, I'm happy to receive them, or in the future, my email address is there, and full details of the programme are on that web address there. Thank you. I'll stop my share for a minute.
And I'll start mine.
Okay. Are there any questions from anybody?
Just a comment, that's amazing feedback, fantastic, well done. And to do so smoothly into the transition of online, particularly when you have such a physical space that is so different online, isn't it, when you're so used to having those resources of giant planes. It's amazing. It is, and going forward we hope to have more of a hybrid programme where we have the online as well as the physical delivery of the workshops, because let's be honest, nothing can take the place of being there, and we're not pretending it can, but we're in different times and we need to meet our audience where they are, and where they are is in the classroom. And it's turned out, I think, to be a much more cheerful process than we thought. I think we're a bit worried it would just feel a bit, but it doesn't. And like, the team are just delighted just to be back, like, engaging with schools in however that happens. So yeah, it's been quite a big piece of work, more logistical than anything, but actually, the end results, yeah, we've been pleased with it, but it doesn't really matter what we think, the schools like it, and
they're what matters. So yeah.
And was it when you did reopen before? Amazing that you were the first. That's incredible. I didn't realise that. But I'm assuming that was for public, but schools didn't do visits then. Is that right?
No, they did. We did have some schools. I mean, during for the 4 weeks we're closed for, we've had to cancel 8 schools coming in. It's not huge numbers, but we did have 8 schools booked in over the next 4 weeks, which is not bad, you know. I mean, we were pleased with that they were doing it. So yeah, we have. I forgot to look the numbers up, but we had very few schools in September, but I think we had 10 schools in October. Now that rings a bell. I think we had 10 schools in October. We had about 6 booked in to come over the next few weeks. So it's quite good, really. I think it helps that we're huge. As a site, we are huge. We have 6 hangars. We have all the outside space. We can guarantee lunch space just for that class, and that no other class will be using that space. And then we request cleans between sessions. So I think all these things, sometimes when you've got a big estate as a museum, it's often a negative, because often it just means a giant expense and lots of repairs. But in this world, people want to go to big places with well ventilated, and nothing's better ventilated than a hangar. So I think that's been in our favour. Yeah. But thank you, Louisa.
Thank you.
Over to me, Sarah. Okay, again, Sarah, give me a thumbs up there. Lovely, thank you. Yeah, so as Sarah said, I'm Rhiannon. I'm the Heritage Outreach Officer for the museum's London site. So a little bit of just general what heritage outreach means, because it can be a bit of a confusing term. So we're committed as a museum to engaging our community. That's the main thing we're here for. So that's sharing and involving our community with the story of the RAF in new and interesting ways. We've got a really flexible approach to outreach, and we're always happy to discuss bespoke activities. Actually, I prefer to do bespoke activities, but for different groups. In normal times, object handling opportunities and different talks to suit different interests and needs. So my role's been around at the museum for sort of 4 or 5 years, initially funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund and now core funded by the museum. And I work with sort of local children and young people, but also communities that normally wouldn't visit the museum, as well as trying to engage our older local people. So I did a virtual care home session this morning. So yeah, so right across sort of the spectrum of local people trying to engage them. So I just wanted to mention a couple of things that we as a team have worked on throughout lockdown to try and get our collections out there for especially family groups. So we've been working on the Royal Air Force Museum at Home, which has a nice little logo there at the top, which I like very much. So during lockdown, the team created a range of resources that families can download and use. So this is everything from sort of quite simple cutting, sort of colouring, make and take sort of activities that we'd normally run, to things like making a hot air balloon, poster competitions, looking in more depth at different themes, such as lucky mascots at the museum, which are always really popular, and Spitfire heroes. So these are all on the museum's website under family resources, and they're all still up there, so do go on and take a quick look at those. So just a quick example, this is the Build Your Own Spitfire resource. And as Sarah said, we didn't have masses sort of up on the website for virtual or kind of downloadable resources, because they just hadn't really been necessary or a priority. But this gave us a chance to create all of these things, and especially in lockdown, I think gave the team a chance to sort of flex their creativity while we were all at home, which was very good. So another thing that went up on the website during the summer was the RAF Museum's children's author in residence, a chap called Tom Palmer, and he wrote a time travelling story, again, as Sarah was saying, all around the Battle of Britain that we've been really focusing on this year. And there's some illustrations from it on the screen there, and those are all up on the website for families. The idea is to read them together, and there's been some lovely feedback on those stories. Okay, so on to sort of some of the projects that we've been running sort of pre-COVID and that will be continuing throughout and afterwards. We have a youth panel at the museum. There they are, all very smiley on the screen there. And that's not children, they wouldn't like that, would they? Young people aged 16 to 24. And what's nice about it is they have a range of interests. So some people come to the youth panel because they're really keen on RAF history or just really keen on history. And then you also have other people who are really interested in getting into a career in museums and see this as a good sort of gateway, a good thing to put on their CV to gain a bit of experience and check they do actually like it before they take the plunge. So they work mainly with my colleague Mike from the Access and Learning team to advise the museum about promoting accessibility for young people, making sure that our exhibitions are actually relevant for younger people. So sort of they act as a focus group for some of the projects. Also, they have a residency every year, which is normally about a week long, and where they get stuck into a meteor project. And over the past 2 years, this has been an exhibition. So the exhibition they worked on last year was exciting because it wasn't just them working with us as a museum. They were working with a partner organisation called the Air League to develop an exhibition, and they did brilliantly. They turned around a whole exhibition within a week, and yeah, brilliant stuff. So that's what they're standing in front of in that image there. And I know the youth panel is going to be continuing, but Mike is looking at ways that they could help with virtual and digital engagement potentially for their residency period this year. So a lot younger, we also run little Swift sessions at the museum for 2 to 5 year olds, and it's aiming to bring our museum to life in sort of a social way, in a fun way. We have games, stories, songs, always related to a theme. So one of the most popular ones, animals, sort of ones that are on our squadron badges. You can tell we get quite creative. The pirate theme, because we have a Buccaneer aeroplane, and these run normally twice a month, and it's £3 per child. And yeah, some virtual Little Swift sessions did happen during the first round of lockdown. A new and exciting project for us at the museum is our first kind of in-house art exhibition that we've put on for a very long time. So this is called In Air and Fire, War Artist, the Battle of Britain and the Blitz. And this opened in September, and it's going to be open for a year. And it's a collection of work exploring artists' responses to the Battle of Britain and the Blitz. And what was really nice about this exhibition is that we did some community consultation where I went out and took a selection of facsimiles of the artworks and were asking people to vote on their favourite and also to write small captions for the artworks that now in the actual physical exhibition sit alongside sort of our curators' labels for the exhibition. As part of the art exhibition, a resource for teachers is currently in development. It's a pack that highlights how schools can use the art exhibition as a way of engaging with Second World War history topic. So we know that most schools won't come to us simply for an art exhibition. They have curriculum links to hit, and as Sarah was saying, Second World War history topic is one of the most popular ones. So it's using the art exhibition but looking at the Second World War topic. So teachers in this pack are given background information on some of the works and ideas of fun activities. So there's different sketching activities to do, but also looking at the people stories that are in this exhibition. So that's being developed at the moment. Carrying on the art theme, Children's Art Week, we have done both an on-site and virtual offer for this. So this year we did have something planned, but obviously we couldn't do what we wanted to do, so we switched it up and we ran a virtual sort of competition asking young people and children to illustrate a poem. So there's a lovely poem that we had and a resource created. Again, these are all on the website, and it provided prompts and inspiration for how to illustrate this artwork. And it was quite nice for us because it was looking at art, but also the arts more generally, as in poetry. So sort of hitting two different camps there. And then last year, when we were able to have an on-site offer, we split the day in two. So in the afternoon, we had a drop-in session for just any family visitors that wanted to come along, and we were doing styrofoam printing. But in the morning, we had a pre-booked session that was exclusively for NW9 families, our local families, to come along for a sort of free, high-quality lino cutting and printing workshop with myself, Joe, who is the art and design lead for the Access and Learning team, and Julia, who's our art curator. So we found that worked really well, doing a specific offer for local people, but then also, you know, having a drop in so everyone could join in. Yeah, and some comments from that, very inspiring and engaging. Really enjoyed and great to include children with special needs. Look forward to more. And that comment I really love because it's from a family that live on the Beaufort Park estate that's slap bang next door to the museum. So yeah, I felt like we gained some fans there. That was good, local fans. Other outreach sessions that we had been doing, working quite closely with Barnet libraries, going around to different libraries within the borough and doing write your own fantasy label sessions. So that's what's going on in the picture there. Families have a go at identifying objects that I would bring along, and they write their own museum labels. And this was sort of working on their storytelling skills, creating their own story. So it doesn't matter what the object actually is at the starting point, it's all about the imagination and what do they think it might possibly be. We had some very, very interesting ones, I would say. But that's a really something that I think we will definitely be wanting to continue in the future. And also for libraries during lockdown, we've been developing a new interactive story based on local history, where if children can't be getting as hands-on and actually touching the objects, these objects are worked into a story, so they're held up and shown alongside a story all about Claude Graham White, who's the founder of where the museum sits today. Also work a lot with our local youth club, which is Fuse Youth Club, based on the Graham Park estate, and we've run various different activities for them. They came along to the Pilots of the Caribbean session that Sarah mentioned during half term, and also one of the highlights is the RAF uniform session, which you can see in the picture there, all looking very snazzy, and that's handling different uniforms, trying them on, but sort of the real engagement within the session is looking at different roles and what the different uniforms represent, and then talking about different jobs, aspirations, things like that, all through the trying on of the different uniforms, and it's fun. Down to the younger age group again, we work quite a lot with Home Start Barnet, so we've done again various different sessions with them, both on site at the museum and where they usually meet on the Graham Park Community Centre. So the picture you can see there is from Toddler Takeover Day, which we ran with Home Start Barnet's family group. So they meet on a Thursday or Friday, and they took on different museum jobs, such as cleaning the planes, as you can see there. It's got a duster, working in the shop, moving objects around the museum. So it was a really nice day because the family sort of came into Hangar 1 and sort of, yeah, I won't say sort of completely took over it, but definitely had a presence, let's put it that way, and absolutely brilliant getting families involved. And it's nice because it's obviously lovely for the children, there's different activities, but for the parents coming along as well, it's really opening up the museum to local people that may not have really thought we were a space for them beforehand, but now are coming back independently because of these sorts of sessions. And we also hosted the Home Start Barnet family groups sports day at the museum, half outdoors, half indoors. There was a bit of a rain delay. Other outreach that we do, normally, especially the summer, be really busy attending different events. So we've got the Graham Park Festival, the East Barnet Festival, Grange Big Local Fun Palace, and we usually take out uniforms, but also some sort of make and take activity. Most popular with, I would say, people coming along to our stands, and also myself, is the badge making. So that's something that we've been doing a lot of, and that we've missed, especially this year, I think. Also, just before COVID, we had started to pilot a supplementary schools programme. So this was in a lot of consultation with the Barnet Supplementary Schools Forum and also the Harrow Supplementary Schools Forum, going along to various meetings and trying to work out what we could offer that would be worthwhile for these groups, because they have a very limited amount of time, as I'm sure you know, normally meeting at the weekend, and with a lot of different curriculum they need to get through. So it was agreed we'd do a sort of literacy history session, which we've piloted. So the children are split up into groups and each given 2 objects from the handling collection. Mostly sort of our more mysterious objects that you're not quite sure what they are. And they're tasked with writing down everything you can tell about the object just from looking at it or holding it. Then we have sort of group sharing with the rest of the class, and eventually teasing out what the actual uses of these mystery objects are. Then they rewrite their labels. So instead of just saying it's wooden, it's heavy, it's got a brass, something or other, they rewrite their labels, and they have to follow the museum interpretation guidelines. So we've got quite strict guidelines at the museum about how many words you can use, things like that. And then as a follow-on activity, if they go back into their own classes, these labels can then be translated into a different language or home language. This is normally one of the priorities for the supplementary schools. So you can see the picture there is one of our labels, which I like very much, the button stick. It's one of my favourite objects, and she's described it very well there. So there we go. So that's sort of a whistle-stop tour of our children and young people's sort of arts offer at the moment. Obviously, some things that have been able to continue, some things that have been put on hold for now, that we're looking at sort of carrying on and reworking and making sure that we're still getting the RAF story out there and engaging with our local children and young people. So yeah, any questions or any tips or ideas, any ways we think we could do a different virtual offer? If you think we're missing anything out, then yeah, either let me know, or my email address is there.